After over 25 years of marriage, we've learned that successful couples have great friendships, put each other first, and focus on light just as much as love. We believe marriage should be fun and easy.
Our goal is to share our journey with the hopes of helping others build strong, happy relationships. Join us as we continue to create our lives beyond I do.
We are not marriage counselors, nor are we mental health professionals. We are simply sharing what has worked in our marriage. Now, on to the show. Hey y'all, I'm Byron.
And I'm Margaret.
And we'd like to welcome you back to the Beyond I Do podcast.
On this episode, we'll be sharing with you our experience as being guest on another podcast. It was our first experience being guest, and the podcast itself was very eye-opening, so we wanted to share that experience with you and also some of the things that we have learned along the way.
All right. So, what was the name of the podcast that we were on?
So the name of the podcast is the Encore podcast, and the host is Miss Shari Doherty.
Yes.
She is from Canada, so we are internationally known.
That's right. We got some Canadian friends.
And the premise of the podcast is she really, her original thinking was guests over the age of 50 who are making like major pivots or turns. And it's called the Encore because, you know, when you go to a concert, the artist comes out, they perform, and then they act like it's over, but they come out for the encore, and that's usually, you know, the best songs, most popular songs. And so
right.
She calls makes reference to the encore season.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought that was a really neat premise for the podcast. We listened to a couple of episodes before we met with her initially.
Yeah.
And we met her, listened to some more of the podcast, and we've just been amazed with some of the guests that she's had.
Yes.
And hearing a lot of what they were experiencing and some of the things we were experiencing. It was definitely the right time and place for this experience. So we wanted to share that with you all.
Yep. So the episode that we are on the Encore podcast is episode 47, and you can find that on her YouTube and her podcast channel, streaming on all platforms.
Yep. Apple, Spotify.
Yep.
Anywhere where you listen to podcasts, and then YouTube. She puts them on YouTube as well. And we'll also be sharing links to our episode, but also to her podcast. You know, when we listened to it initially, we were thinking, you know, for people our age who are approaching middle age and things. But then she actually, we have the episodes that we've done with our kids because it's interesting to us, the difference between generations.
Yes.
And she actually has some episodes with her daughter. They do a series of the Gen X and Gen Z differences.
Yeah.
And so to hear that and to know that, you know, it's not just us, that was a good thing.
Yeah, that was interesting.
But she has an episode with her son who does the producing for the podcast. And she said, you know, she asked him, I wanted to know, since you listen to every single episode, how does it feel being in your 20s and hearing some of the experiences of these individuals who are in their 50s and 60s and the overwhelming, you know, idea of there's still time.
Yeah.
And so that was an interesting take as well.
Yeah.
What were some of the episodes that stuck out with you?
The one thing that I found interesting because we always hear about things in other countries and how things are. But some of the guests were, speaking of, having that fear of launching out on something different. Many of them were, forced to do things different after the pandemic, and some before. Some of them were forced out of jobs for different reasons. But the thing that stuck out to me is, they were talking about, venturing out on their own in business and not having, having a plan for health care and dental care and things like that. And I thought that was interesting because I always heard, healthcare was free there, or they had universal health care, and which I'm sure is probably like
the structure is different, right? It's like the structure is still different, than what we have, and it's still more
like
readily available.
The daughter said something about not having dental,
right?
She had universal health care,
right?
Have universal dental, and that's something that I never even thought about. Like, wow, But she was talking about how excited she was. She's getting ready to marry a gentleman who was in the military, and he had dental benefits. Several of the guests just amazed me just hearing their backgrounds, because she starts out like getting the guests to share what information they would like to from growing up, how they grew up, where they grew up. Many of them talk about the challenges in life growing up in single parent homes, or a lot of the women had faced sexual abuse, physical abuse. Some of them struggled with drugs in their earlier years of their lives, and just seeing the other side of that kid that eventually straightened his life up at some point in time, and just kind of so that was definitely interesting to me.
And then, because I think we've been talking about it, we've been excited about it. So just to back up a little bit and explain a little more of, like I said, this was the right time for us and our experiences.
Yeah.
So we've always felt like we're at an age where we're too old for this thing, but too young for this thing.
Yep.
And so I think age-wise, we are finally at a stage where it feels that way. It feels like some things we're too old for, some things we're too young for. And when it comes to just things that you want out of life and you want to pivot into new experiences, for me, one of the struggles is, we're too old now, or I'm too old, or I wish that I could have done this, or I should have done this way. And so the premise of her podcast is these people who are at midlife and they are making these pivots and changes.
Yes.
And like you said, some of them were forced into those things because of the pandemic, but some of them, it was that drive and that motivation to accomplish whatever it is that wouldn't die down, and they finally had to get into it. And so for me, that was a big one for me, because the idea of time and shoulda, coulda, woulda, that has been something that I've struggled with.
Right.
And so to hear individuals who are older than me, who are going back to school and learning new trades. There's one woman, 53 years old, who went through boot camp and joined the military.
Yeah.
And she said in 3 years, I believe, she's gone back to school for officer training. And she said in 3 years, at 56, she'll have to go through a second round of boot camp because she'll be going to officer school.
I thought that was interesting.
So those types of things, for me, to hear those stories, because I do struggle with, I wish that I'd done this, I wish that, I'd done that. And so
it just takes me to the thought of, when you hear people say, it's never too late, to do whatever you want to do.
Right.
But to hear people, for whatever reason, said, they woke up in the middle of their life and said, you know what, I want to make a change. And I know some of us may be struggling with what we're doing. We may be doing something we're not happy doing.
Right.
Or maybe doing something that, it's not fulfilling to us.
Exactly.
And,
you get
we're
to
in
a point
our
of
mid to late 40s now, and it's like, well, hey, it might not be a bad thing to make a change. Or
right.
Make plans to make a change.
I think too, for me, my motivation has changed a lot,
mm-hmm.
and the things that I value, that has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I've always understood the importance of time,
mm-hmm.
but as we've gotten older, like time, that's the most important thing, is that the ability to control my time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the material desires and things like that,
mm-hmm.
I've shifted a lot when it comes to some of those things, because all in all, I want control of my time. I want that freedom of time.
It's definitely interesting thinking about it. The earlier years, we chased all the things that people were we were told we were supposed to strive for, home ownership, and we've had the houses, we've had the cars, we've had all these different things. The kids who were blessed to do what they want to do, and but when I think back on some of that stuff that we had, it's like, was that really necessary?
Right, and then was it worth it?
Was it worth it?
Was it worth the cost of it?
Right.
With the hours the hours that you've had to work. I've gone back to school a couple of times. So, we've missed out on things because of those commitments so that we can financially be in a certain space, but at the same time, are those things going to feed into our lives like some of the experiences?
Right. It kind of made me think about, like, doing the shift work that I do, and the times throughout the years when I had to work, so I wasn't able to make a basketball game or a football game or make a family gathering, because I was scheduled to work, because we were on this journey to build and have things. And it makes you think about, like, okay, well, those things that we accomplished, was it worth that time?
Right.
So thinking about having that time is more valuable. Thinking about being there to cheer my child on is more valuable than, I don't know, having the big house or having this car that I wanted. That, it's like anything else material. You get something, and it's, it's good when it's new. You know what I'm saying? And after a while, it's a car, it's a house, it's a whatever.
I think, though, that we've almost been put in the position to examine those choices, so that we have more understanding of the value of that time and things like that. So
I think so too.
We also, like with your work schedule, I think for us that has helped us understand that we don't have to put the value in one specific day.
Right.
We don't have to on Valentine's Day wait to show love, because if you worked on Valentine's Day, we went out day before, the day after. That's the same thing with Christmas and Thanksgiving.
The holidays, I had to work, or we adjusted due to the holidays.
So in that aspect of it, it's like we have learned that we can value each other and spending time with each other and family on any day, and it doesn't have to be a specific day. So I think there was good and bad that came out of it, but definitely now there's been a shift to where I'm like, okay, I'm not concerned about having this thing and that thing if it means that I don't have the time and energy to even enjoy it.
Yep, exactly. And that's where the freedom of change comes in. And with all the guests on this podcast that I think I've heard all of them, Even up to us so far.
Yeah, I'm not caught up, but you did. You binged all of it.
But it's interesting. You're hearing these stories of these people. I think the average guest, other than her children, had been between 42 to 70.
Mm-hmm.
And just interesting that, some of these people that started businesses at 55 or
right.
starting a new job or a new company at 60. Some of them have, done these remarkable things in the middle of their life when people should be settling down thinking about retirement.
When we have been told that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was one of the things that stuck out to me is one of the guests said you have to let go of shoulda.
Yep.
Because like I said, that is something that I struggle with. I struggle with shoulda, coulda, woulda. I struggle with, thinking back and if I had just done this or just done that.
Or having to do something at this age or this time I should have done this or I should have done that by this time. And it's like, you learn that, that's just life. It's everybody's life is different.
Right. And you lose sight of what you have
when
you start to focus on things like that.
When you focus on what you don't have, you lose sight on what you already have.
Right. And so that was, like I said, it was just so timely to be able to have that experience, and I needed to hear those stories and to hear those real people who are going through these things.
Mm-hmm.
As we move forward, you have, and you discussed this on her show. You have your goal of retirement at 55.
Yeah.
And so as we, put ourselves in the position to move forward towards that goal, it's scary because we have not, we've not done things in a manner that we quote unquote should have in terms of our finances and preparing for that goal, because I think for years 55 seemed like it was a lifetime away.
It was a long time, yeah, exactly.
And so here we are now, knocking at 55's door. And it's like, okay, we don't have that time anymore. I think that the shift has helped because my priorities are different. Your priorities are different. And the goal is to spend time together. And
it's looking at things to make an adjustment instead of saying, okay, this is what we're going to do now in order to, when that time comes, it's preparing ourselves, it's educating ourselves, it's growing. When we starting this podcast, it's helped us tremendously as far as our relationship and learning things about each other that, for whatever reason we didn't share or, were, reluctant to share with each other. We've learned so much about each other, and, just that in itself has helped us grow closer. And so I'm appreciative of that. And then, when we started talking about our next venture, started to help other people gain the access of the happiness and joy that you have, that's exciting to me. To look forward to that, and I, like I said, my goal was to be in a position to retire, but what is retirement? What is retirement? Because I think the work will always need to be done. When it comes to helping others achieve their goals.
Retirement in terms of working for someone else.
Job and clocking in. Yeah, definitely.
So the goal has been, by the time you're 55, to be self-employed and self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient, exactly.
And so to hear others who have gone through those types of shifts at this point in their lives was wonderful.
Definitely.
So it was an experience. It was a wonderful experience, it was motivating, and I really think that I would say definitely individuals who are close in age with us.
Yes.
But also anyone could benefit from hearing those stories because, with our kids, a lot of times they get stuck in this is the way it's supposed to be, or if I make a commitment to do this, then that's what I'm going to have to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
And we have told them over and over, it doesn't work that way. You don't have to stick to one thing.
Exactly.
But if they could hear that from other individuals who have lived it, that would make a big difference. So definitely anybody could benefit from hearing from her guests.
Children in their 20s trying to figure life out or thinking about what they want to do, heck, even in their teens, share this podcast with them because it's eye-opening to hear people who are in the middle of their life making changes. And, you might have thought at 20 you wanted to be this.
Right.
But who's to say that you're going to do that for the entirety of your life?
Right.
That makes me think about, I was listening to, I was going through social media, and the lady, Pinky Cole, who owns a Slutty Vegan, she was talking about how when she got fired from her job, she thought that was the end of her world.
Right.
And now she's a multi-millionaire.
Right. Right.
With her business. So, sometimes that firing is a good thing.
Right.
Or that layoff is a good thing.
Right. And I think that's where the idea for the show came from. Her first episode, she talks about being in this corporate setting, and then, all of a sudden, you're let go. And I think she said she had been there 30 years.
Yep.
So to be in that position for 30 years, and that's what and then all of a sudden it's gone, that can create some anxiety and whatnot. So we really recommend you taking a listen, especially, like I said, if you're our age and you have these restless moments. There's so much that I want to accomplish, and I feel like I get into these ruts where I feel like I've wasted time because there's so much I want to accomplish. But to hear that let me know that I still have plenty of time to work on those things and see what we can accomplish together.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's discuss it.
Our Let's Discuss It topic is about a video we saw online with the caption, Greatest Marriage Advice. We're going to share that clip with you now.
This is the best relationship advice that no one has ever told you. When I was about to get married to my wife, I asked my parents, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to me in regards to having an exceptional marriage? My parents were married for 33 years before my mom passed away. I never heard them raise their voice to each other. They loved each other dearly, and they sacrificed for each other in a lot of different ways. And my mom said to me, make plans and make love. I laughed because obviously the make love part, but I asked her, explain make plans. And she said, make plans to grow together, to travel together, to chase dreams together. And she said, you may have different jobs, you may be in different careers, you may be working, she may be at home, or vice versa. Always make plans together. And then she said, and make love, that's self-explanatory.
All right. Make plans.
Make love.
Make love.
Yeah. And I think you found that and shared it.
Yeah.
What was it that stuck out to you?
Well, I think what stuck out to me was the when people oftentimes get married, people make plans for the wedding. They make plans for, what the colors are going to be, what are the, how many people are going to be in the wedding. They make all these different plans for the day, but oftentimes they don't make plans for the life of the marriage, as far as what is our desires, what are our goals. And I think a lot of times people have individual goals, but what are the together plans?
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of times people end up dropping the ball. You know, so that stuck out to me pretty good.
For me, what got me was, if you're making plans together, then you have a better chance of staying together.
Exactly.
If you're making plans together, that means that you intend on carrying those out together. And so if you're making plans together, that's just more of a chance that you're going to stay together. So that stuck out to me. I like the simplicity of it, but also there's depth there, because if we're planning a future, it's hard to walk away from that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and like, you know, I think of the things, you know, we probably went through our life planning trips, planning, you know, well, what are we going to do with the kids when we go off? What are we going to do about this? We plan, you know, well, if we're going to get a car, how we're going to get it. We made those type of plans, but, you know, I think that having those in-depth plans of what are we going to do at this stage in our life? What are we going to do once the kids are out of the house?
Right.
You know,
right.
Those things should probably be discussed to see where, you know, where people are. Because there's going to be that life after the kids, and people need to be thinking about that seriously.
I think that's one of the things for us very early into it. There was an understanding of, you know, yes, we have kids, but they're not going to be here forever.
Right.
The forever part is you and I.
Exactly.
And from early on, we worked on us, so that we would have that connection there, so that when the kids are gone, it wouldn't just be, okay, now what? So I think that maybe that's why this stood out to us, because we have made plans together, and we always put each other first, because we knew, you know, you and I will be together. The kids, we're preparing them to go off and have their own life. But you and I will be here, and I think that it's sad to me when I see couples who have been together for 20 plus years, and once the kids start growing up and they realize that they've grown apart, you know, it makes you wonder throughout the years, how much effort were you putting into your marriage?
They didn't put the effort into each other. It was what the kids have going on, and then slowly, before people realize it, they end up becoming roommates more so than a married couple. And then they tend to, you know, start doing things separately, doing things on their own. And when that's another key, you know, making those plans to, you know, plan to make dates, plan to have that time together, away from everybody else, away from the kids, away from everyone, just having that time alone with one another to reconnect.
I think too that a lot of times we make it so, like, you hear people say, oh, you have to date your spouse and you have to have date night. You have to be able to spend time together, and a lot of times, like, you call it date night and you put these expectations, then it's like, if we can't go out to dinner at this place at this time, then it's not a date night, so we're not doing it right. Whereas you focus on spending time with each other so that you're creating a connection, you're creating a bond. I know for me, like you mentioned the podcast earlier, for me to have that shared project with you, to where even though, you know, we've kind of fallen into our different roles and things that you manage and take care of, things that I manage and take care of, but we're still working on the same end project. And that has been, been fun to
planning it together. So it's like,
to work on that with
talking about the episodes, and also I know for me, talking about each episode, how we're going to structure it, it helps us to talk about those things that can cause hindrances in relationships.
Right.
And it allows us to recap and think, okay, you know what? Now I see what you said, 10 years ago.
Right.
That makes sense now. Then I didn't see it at 25.
Right. And it's also that, brings us to, we are not, nobody is saying that we have cracked the code and that everything is perfection, but just that when you get out what you put in.
Yes.
And so
definitely.
we made the commitment to each other to put in to our relationship, and we get out what we put in.
Yep. So. Exactly. And make that plan. Focus on making those plans to, I don't understand it. I guess, people have just that hectic careers, but, people make plans to chase the bag, so to speak, and make plans for their careers. This one to do, that one to do. Well, you have to make plans to develop that relationship, develop that time.
Right.
And that has to fit into it in order for your relationship to be successful.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times, careers, things like that, these personal goals, they're great, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, when you clock off of that job, or, when you get done being the attorney or the doctor or the garbage person or the teacher, whatever your profession is, you sit home and the kids are at bed and it's just you and your spouse. What does that time mean?
Right.
At the end of the day.
Right.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on this journey once again. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Beyond I Do Podcast. And until next time, we will holler at y'all.